Welcome to the RaceGuru Thunder Hour, brought to you by the Elite Plus Network and FantasyGuru.com, where we talk all things NASCAR, including betting, DFS, and the launching of Mark Hogan's iRacing career. Today we are with the one and only, the man, the myth, the legend behind the curtain, in front of the camera today, Sean Engel, who you can follow on X at SeanE247. Remember, that's SEAN. And the Marlin is back, Mark Hogan, who you can follow on X at DFS_Marlin. We're here to talk more NASCAR. Gentlemen, how are you today?
I'm doing well. All right. Doing all right today.
Are we overcommitting Mark here, Sean? Did I maybe, take the lead a little too far here? I mean, we just so people know, we were discussing things like iRacing before the show, and Mark was thinking about dabbling into it, and I assured him there is no dabbling in iRacing. But hey, if he keeps taking down and coming close to taking down these contests, maybe he can retire and we can help launch his iRacing career. I'm all for it.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It might be a DFS retirement plan, and it was close last weekend too. So we're in the hunt for some big wins here. I feel it. We're getting close to knocking some tournaments down. So, man, Ricky Stenhouse killed me last week, but we'll talk about that. And I don't know. We'll see about this iRacing thing. Although that NASCAR video game, we might have to wait for that.
I think that's the way to go, because we can get a lot of people involved with that. I will note it's not going to be cross-platform. So if you're on Xbox, you got to play with Xbox folks. If you're on PlayStation, you got to be with PlayStation folks. But I'm with you. I think the members are on the verge of breaking the bank, so to speak, with a big win. I told the wife, I said, here I am. I'm whining. I didn't win any money, but I broke even both days playing tournaments, which if I were to go to Jeff Mans and say, yeah, I'm up this year, about 3-4 times my money. I broke even a lot. And he's going to go, oh, so you're doing a lot of cash games. And I'll be like, no, it's all tournaments. And he's going to be like, what are you doing? Like, that's wild, right? So I'm with you guys. I think we're close. We've been very close. And the unfortunate thing is, most of the time, all the guys we talk about are what's in that top lineup. We just may not have had the right mix. So we're close. And look, with racing, there's luck, Sean. I mean, we can't control, I'm upset Gibbs didn't get back to 5th. It just so happened to work out the way the pit stops fell, that sort of stuff. So that bet was, talk about a sweat of a bet. He was door to door with 6th place on the bumper of 5th place, coming to the checkers. But that's racing.
That sure is racing. And you know what? I'll say this much, Mark, if you end up getting that iRacing career going and you need a virtual crew chief, I got your back with that, man.
I'm down. Let's do
make
it.
The team. Let's make the team together.
We'll make a whole team, man.
I'll
there
spot.
you go.
I'm not above spotting.
Yeah.
See, pull a little Eric Jones.
I'll spot and be the enforcer. We'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go. That's the way to do it. But in case anybody here is new to our show, this is the RaceGuru Thunder Hour. We're in 2025, so we call it RaceGuru Thunder Hour 2025. We're part of FantasyGuru.com, and FantasyGuru.com, they do more than just NASCAR. They do stuff like NFL. They have plenty of NFL packages, and their draft guide is up and available right now, so you can go forth and get it right there to prep yourself up for football season. There's still MLB content available over at Fantasy Guru there, including the guide with that too. You can see content from Ray Flowers, Scott Bondar, Brett Wojo, Patio Joe, and the rest of the crew over there. And then we have plenty of other options, including MVP, Platinum, VIP, or all-in packages that cover basically, if you want all the sports that Fantasy Guru covers, including the rest of our content, you can go over there and get those packages at FantasyGuru.com, or hit up support at FantasyGuru.com. Be pretty nice to them, and they'll let you have perhaps the best possible deal that you can get. So,
and I hear that deal is drying up fast. That the leash on Mr. Ted Schuster is getting shorter on that. So apparently Ted's been very helpful and giving to the members. So kudos to Ted. But I heard on air this week that is drying up fast, because we are getting to football season. So the 10% discount that you see out there is about the best there is, unless you act now. I do mean now, and reach out to support, or forever hold your peace.
Definitely. So do go forth and do that. Be sure to also like, subscribe, and give us any comments and feedback in case you're enjoying the show, in case you like our faces, in case you like the performance we've been doing DFS and betting wise. Feel free to leave all that right there and subscribe.
I'll take the negative comments. You want to throw hatred at me, but it's leaving a comment, bring it on. Fine by me.
Yeah, I'm sure we've all bought our fair share of negative comments at some point. We've been at this long enough that probably warranted at least once or twice, I'd say. Oh, man. But
should we get into this week's race? If I got some negative comments, but I don't know how you guys feel. But, I mean, should we get into this week's race, Sean?
You mean by this week, you mean the past weekend's race at Sonoma, right?
Yes,
So,
wine country. And I do like red wine, just for the record.
Red wine.
Now, do you like the UB40
version?
version? Do you like the UB40 version or the original version? I don't even know if it's original by Neil Diamond.
I honestly don't mind either one.
Really? Because Neil Diamond's partial to the UB40 version.
I like the UB40 version. That's the one I'm most familiar with.
Same. That's the one I really enjoy. But if you grew up on the UB40 version, the Neil Diamond version will kind of throw you for a loop. But Neil has openly admitted he really enjoys the UB40 version. He likes the part they added there. So little hat tip to Neil and UB40 personally.
Classic. But yeah, Sonoma, as far as this race is concerned, I don't consider the Cup race a classic, but I do consider the Xfinity Series race closer to a classic. Because Xfinity was exciting there. I'll quickly just get into that there because really the storyline between that was the duel between two of the hottest road course drivers in NASCAR, between Shane Van Gisbergen and Connor Zilisch. I mean, those two battled together the previous week at Chicago, and then they battled all together all throughout the entire Xfinity race this past weekend. And then, man, it was very close and very back and forth. It was exciting to legitimately watch those two go at it. And then at the very end, Connor edged Shane out, and Shane gave it all he had.
Hat tip to Connor Zilisch. He definitely, as OGB Snacks mentioned in Discord, definitely learned a little lesson there, which you expect from an 18-year-old, learning from a wily veteran 36-year-old. I agree. Xfinity was a good show. It was a fun show. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I thought, SVG and Zilisch, I felt like he was the right play when it comes to Xfinity, or he was the right play. Lower owns for, I think, SVG than I thought from a DFS. No, Zilisch, I thought, was lower owned from a DFS perspective. SVG was about 70% last weekend, where Zilisch was 29%. And I think when we talked about it, we thought it would be the opposite, where a guy that's priced up higher, even though they're both elite, who's starting in the front, is going to command bigger ownership. So I thought that was fascinating from a DFS standpoint. Also thought the story behind Eric Jones and his spotter, that was fascinating to watch with Rogers.
Oh yeah.
Rogers. So I was under the impression Eric Jones would have a better day in Cup too, after maybe spotting him and kind of getting to see things from a few different angles, but it didn't end up working out for him. I think he had an issue towards the end of the race.
Got ran over.
Yeah, got ran over. But Will Rogers, I mean, that was cool to see, man. That was an interesting little storyline going into Xfinity. And man, can we just see these guys do a road course Cup race? Because that would be even that's the only more exciting element than this. And I enjoyed it. I thought I just overall the entire weekend on my side, I thought both races were pretty entertaining. Yeah. More than Chicago, I should say.
I agree with that 100%.
That's an absolute fair take. And to be fair, Will Rogers comes from the same background as SVG. So to your point, Mark, I think they would like to see that, right? They being NASCAR, they being the drivers themselves, SVG and Will Rogers. I saw something weird about SVG talking about the supercars. I don't know how true it is, because you got to be careful with some of these article headlines. The stuff I'm seeing up Bubba Wallace is crazy. But I got nothing but a hat tip for the show that was put on for Saturday.
Yeah. One last point that I'm going to make is to give one last shout out to the guy that finished in third behind Connor and SVG right there, William Sawalich. Out of nowhere gets a third place run.
I said in the overview, watch him. This is his background, and this is where we should see him excel. And he hasn't excelled at this point. I used him. I actually used him in my lineups, and I was happy to do so because I figured he'd be very low owned. He was incredibly low owned. But this is a reminder to folks that knowing the background in these drivers can help. And look, he looked good in qualifying, and he does have a road racing background, and it mattered. And to your point, Sean, I think he and the team needed it because they have struggled everywhere, including the road courses. This was an expectation. So I think from a confidence standpoint, which we all know confidence is everything in sports, especially motorsports, this should be a launching point for Sawalich because he didn't come in with as much hype as Zilich did. But if you go back 2 years, it was very similar hype we were hearing about William Sawalich.
Yeah, and it's crazy, too, because as far as Sawalich was concerned, looking back towards his stats for the year, this is only his 4th top 10 finish of the season.
Right.
His first one since Mexico City, and it's his first top 5 finish of the entire season right there. Which
and
is
last year in a part-time ride, people were losing their marbles over him.
It's true. Especially when you're in Gibbs equipment, there's like an expectation that you're going to perform out there. And for a good amount of year, he just did not get there.
Well, what'd you guys think about the Cup race then?
Cup race wasn't as good of a show as the Xfinity Series was concerned, but I do think Cup did give us a couple of interesting talking points right there. Yeah, even though at the front it was just Shane Van Gisbergen all the way, leading 97 of the 110 laps, and nobody could catch him right there.
Yeah.
He came in for tires, was in the middle to the back of the pack, and passed the leader before they pitted. I mean, it was just
stage
I'm gonna
2.
Say this. Yeah, I'm gonna say this and leave it at this, and you guys can hash it out. Too many road courses. Hat tip to SVG. I'm impressed with what he's been able to improve on the ovals. I don't want to discredit him on that because there's been marketed improvement there. But I don't think it's right. This championship format, this is a prime example of why it's from my perspective, because this guy is now the 3rd seed going into the playoffs. He's going to have some extra bonus points. And the only time he's been a factor for wins, the only time, even a factor for top 5s, has been the road courses. And that's it. And I really struggle with the fact that, one, I think we may have a little bit too many road courses anyway, but we only do, 6? Counting what's in the playoffs?
Yeah, it's 6 for this year.
Okay, so 16 to 17% of all the racing we do is road course racing. And I understand all the ovals have their different breaks, but we always hear they only turn left. We're going in circles. So that means 83% of everywhere else we go is an oval, and this guy's going to be a 3rd seed for the playoffs. And granted, there is 1 out of 10 races. So again, 10%, a small factor, and this guy's going to have a huge impact on the playoffs. And I think SVG would even openly admit he's not a favorite for the playoffs. So to be a 3rd seed just seems outlandish to me. And great. So we have a guy that spent a lot of years in a similar car to this next-gen car running road races, and he's giving a show to the NASCAR guys. I don't know what we think we're proving and why this is good for the sport. So, hey, SVG, hat tip, you've done well. I'm glad you're here. I want to see more improvement on the ovals, but I couldn't care less if we had more. I wish we had less road racing, and I think there's just been way too much, especially over the last month with the road races and the street race and SVG. I'm just kind of burnt on it.
You know, to your point, Rich, about Shane Van Gisbergen, I don't know if you caught any of the post-race show right there after the race was done, but they had SVG on himself at one point, and the commentators were basically talking to him about his road course success and kind of propping him up along with like the names like Jeff Gordon and Tony Stewart and all them. And then Shane Van Gisbergen, when they asked him about that, he was like, yeah, that's cool, but I'm still kind of not that good at the oval, so I can't say I'm right there yet.
I did hear him say that, and like I said, I have no disrespect or lost love for SVG. I'm more overall the hype, and I think this playoff system has made it a bigger thing than it should be. I mean, I would say he's a road course ringer. I mean, it's very similar to Marcus Ambrose and AJ Allmendinger, like we've seen from them in the past when they've kind of been better than everyone else. I feel like we're making, it's like making drama. We're making things. Like, this isn't the base of NASCAR. If there are NASCAR fans that want more road races, cool. We have IndyCar, we have IMSA, we have all these other series that do road racing. NASCAR is unique because of the ovals. Indy's added ovals because that's what it used to be more about, and it is unique. You don't see that really anywhere else in the world. So I'm a little over again, when the guy himself's like, pump the brakes. Why are you putting me in the same, ballpark as your greatest ever? Seems a little outlandish. Like, that tells me the hype is a bit outlandish.
Yeah. I mean, SVG himself said it, so he only proved your point right there. But really, his hiring is a little more so just based upon the playoff system and Trackhouse Racing gaming it completely, just so they could set themselves up in the long term for more success. That's really all it is.
And they're going to do the same with Zillage. They're going to do the same with Zillage. They just doubled down on that opportunity, right?
100%. Totally, that is exactly what's happening.
But I want Mark's take, because he said he actually enjoyed both this weekend. So, not trying to pick on you, Mark, but we've talked. You're more of a, I wouldn't say newer fan, casual fan. You're getting more into it. You're a DFS guru in of itself. But as from a racing thing, you said this is all relatively newer in the last few years. What is your thought? Because if NASCAR wants more fans like you, are the road races bringing you in?
So I would say this. I do think the road races are a little less stressful to bet on, just because there is still a chance for a huge wreck, but it just doesn't feel like a super speedway where like every single turn is like a huge disaster waiting to happen. But the Saturday race was a pure race. So like, even outside of a betting perspective, that was exciting to see SVG and Zillage go at it like that. Sunday was interesting for me because I was looking at it purely from a DFS perspective, and they had an alternative broadcast because of the in-season tournament. So they had this DraftKings broadcast on a different channel where they had like Larry McReynolds and Burton. I forget his first name.
Jeff
Burton. And they're just going through the head-to-heads the whole time. But what was really nice is pretty much they were constantly working through the field, chasing these head-to-heads and just watching it through the driver cams. I was so locked in on that towards the end of the race, I wasn't paying attention. I knew SVG was going to win it, given how it started, given what I expected from him. Like, after the final, couple, I mean, the restarts, anything can happen, but he had that pretty locked down. So I wasn't even paying attention to first place, but I'm biting my nails towards the end, looking at some of these head-to-heads, watching my DFS lineup. It was intense. And I didn't even realize, all of a sudden I see them all slow down. I look over and my wife's like, yeah, it's over. Because the broadcast didn't even pay any attention to SVG running the course at all. So it was almost refreshing to not see them just jerk off to the leader the whole day, and focus on the betting angles of it.
Which the main broadcast, I do want to give TNT some props, because they I don't know if Junior or Letarte or who talked to them or what got said, but they're at the end, the last probably 15 laps, Sean, all they did was show us second basically through seventh place. Everywhere There was a battle inside that top 10 to top 5. That's all we saw. I mean, they mentioned SVG. They might show him in the little corner ahead of everybody, but hat tip to TNT in that they did actually show us some racing. If you didn't know, SVG was dominating, there was some interesting stuff with Briscoe. And like I said, Gibbs and Bell and Reddick were all battling right there for the final 5th spot. So they did do a decent job with that. It just, maybe I'm old, man. I like my circles.
So you know what? I think they basically took the feedback in strides and actually listened to people a little bit, because they did show more of what was happening this week as a result too. But overall, you brought up Chase Briscoe right there. I did want to briefly shout him out just because he got his first ever career road course top 5 finish and finished second behind SVG. And I don't think many people saw that coming right there, because people did not think of Briscoe as like a big road racer since the Xfinity series like that.
Big fade for me, big zero for me on that. I completely agree, Sean. And I think what caught more people by surprise was how good Briscoe was compared to the rest of the field. Like, maybe he was secondary to SVG, but he was clearly better than everybody else on the long runs, and it wasn't close. And the data kind of pointed to Truex doing the same, but I'll be the first to admit, I didn't mention that in my overview because the last few road course races, it's been that way, and Briscoe has kind of let us down. So I don't know if they worked on something post Mexico City. I'm with Mark. Throw out Chicago, it's a completely different animal. The roads were breaking apart the cars. But Mexico City and Sonoma are much more similar in that they're dedicated road courses, designed passing lanes, that sort of thing.
Even Coda, too.
Coda, Watkins Glen, they all fit in that. But we've been to Coda, we've been to Mexico City. So I don't know what all played into that. But there's something clicked with Briscoe and the team on that. The team has had speed at these places before, but not like we saw with Briscoe this weekend.
Yeah, that is definitely for certain. So had to give the shout out to Briscoe right there. Mark brought up the in-season tournament. I did want to update about that right there too, because wow, it is definitely not. It's now the final 4. We got our matchups for the last 2. Go ahead, Rich.
Who had Ty Dillon in the top 4?
Yeah. He went past Bowman on the last lap right there and earned his way into the final 4 of the in-season tournament.
You got to give the guy props, because Ty Dillon was the butt of all jokes and was going to be the first one out. I mean, Mark, to your point, should we, because you talked about it, you were like, after we've all did all this chalk, maybe we should go back and just like pick one with Ty Dillon going all the way, or one of these other guys. And I tell you what, that would have been brilliant, dude.
I know.
Yeah. It would have.
Yeah, I should have looked into that more. But you know what? That was such an impossible thing to actually win. To be perfect with it too, with that many upsets in the first round, was just not. I know they were going for parity. It was too much. Like, it was just too much for fans to even handle, to even have a chance at it. The funny thing is, the broadcast was excellent. This weekend, they did that right, man. Like, that was, I didn't care about what was happening in the in-season tournament, but just because they were going through the field looking at all these head-to-heads, I had so much more awareness of everything that was happening in the race versus just the top 10.
Yeah.
Which to your point, that's what it's like being at the track. Like, for years when people would be like, well, it's so boring. I'm like, when you're there, it's a completely different experience, because you're hearing on the radio who's making changes, who's a comer and who's a goer, right? Who's getting into it with somebody. You're trying to figure out why all of a sudden am I seeing the 18 like 5 cars ahead of where he was the last lap around, right? All these different things. So I'm right there with you, and I can see how that played into it. I guess my point was they brought parity. I don't think anybody would have guessed all of these upsets would advance so far. But this almost proves my point, Sean, on why our playoff system is stupid. Because this is really not that uncommon in racing. Crap shit happens on the track. Guy runs into you. It was no fault of your own. Poor Eric Jones. Guy cuts a tire right in front of you. Got nowhere to go. Smoke everywhere. Next thing you know, you're sideways like Christopher Bell was a few weeks ago, right? So all these things play into it, and nobody was going to get this thing perfect. Nobody. And the thing is compared to the NCAA tournament, we're only dealing with, 16 drivers versus like 64 in the tournament. It was a small number relative.
It was 32 to start out the in-season challenge right there. Now we're down to 4. And lo and behold, 3 of the guys are named Ty, and then there's John Hunter Nemechek right there too.
Which nobody would have had Ty Dillon, Ty Gibbs, and John Hunter.
And Tyler Reddick.
In this thing. Well, Reddick, I can swallow that pill. I'm keeping him out of it because I could see someone have Reddick in the final 4. nobody had the other three drivers.
I mean, it was because
Maybe
Ty
one-
Dillon had Hamlin in the first round, I want to say.
Yep.
John Hunter Nemechek had a pretty big time driver like Larson or something ridiculous
Right.
like that.
Larson was up against Reddick in the first round.
Oh, okay.
But
Yeah,
John
he was
Hunter
big,
did have
yeah.
a big name, Mark. I don't remember who it was. But
he did have to
my
go through
point-
Christopher Bell at one point.
Right. There's no way anybody was picking Ty Gibbs, Ty Dillon, and
John Hunter.
John Hunter. There's no Reddick. I'll buy the Reddick play, but
Even though he did have a few rounds where he could have gone either way, especially based on how his performance was this season too. But
craziness.
But I will say that he is probably the most likely of the four in order to get to this point. I do agree with that.
I mean, the guy's consistently priced around $5,000 on DFS, and he just advanced to the final. I mean,
Should have just played Ty Dillon the last 3 weeks.
And he's the lone Chevrolet representative at this point. The other three are Toyota drivers.
hey, John Hunter's a 6,000 driver every week.
Yeah. One of those two is guaranteed to be in the final match right there.
I mean, like I said, Reddick, I can swallow that pill. It's the other three that I'm just like, I mean, Gibbs has been priced up lately. He's in Joe Gibbs. We have high expectations. It hasn't happened. So fair. But Dillon and John Hunter, come on. I was calling John Hunter's team the soccer club 3 months ago. You know, I mean, anyway, I'm done with Sonoma. Time to move on. And from my perspective, you guys can discuss what you like there.
I think pretty much as far as that is concerned, just some small shout outs right there. Chase Elliott had a chance with those fresher tires, finished third, didn't quite get there. Michael McDowell ended up with a top 5 right there. I know I was pretty on him this past week, so shout out to him right there. Kyle Busch snuck off with the top 10 right in the 10th position after a spin and a win. I mean, another spin inside the middle of the race right there. And then Joey Logano, we talked about him on the show last week. He ended up sneaking into 9th. Another top 10 for Joey at Sonoma. So there you go. But I think on that note, that's just about everybody I wanted to talk about right there. I know there were a few run-ins, such as like Ross Chastain and Daniel Suarez, Josh Berry getting into Carson Hocevar right there. But that kind of all explains themselves. Let's get to some actual big conversation notes right here. So let's first talk about the topic that we've been skirting around all year long, Rich. But now, because some developments have actually happened that do affect the racing this week, we kind of have to talk about it now. It's time, Rich. Let's go and get into the lawsuit, because the lawsuit has now affected this race because per a NASCAR filing that happened, 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports are now expected to run as open teams for Dover and Indianapolis. A NASCAR filing has just shown this to basically be the case where the teams filled out the paperwork. They're going to be open teams. So this right here is big doings. First thoughts here.
Well, first off, there's a lot of hubbub on here and a lot of PR stuff. I don't know anybody that has enough in antitrust and law to really speak intelligently on most of this stuff. Most of the comments I'm seeing, those supporting NASCAR are basically supporting NASCAR because they hate Denny Hamlin. That's how I see it. That is what the vast majority of it is. It's not founded in NASCAR has the right to do this or that. I don't know how you can't question NASCAR having a monopoly when they own the ARCA Menard series, the Truck Series, the Xfinity Series, the Cup Series, the Canadian Series, the Mexico Series, and not say it's not. I mean, there are products on the shelf at the store when someone gets over 47, 50% market share that it's considered monopoly at that point. Outside of the Cars Tour, I don't know what else there is. ASA, I guess, has tried to make a comeback. You could say there's other dirt racing and midgets and late models, but nothing that has the TV, nothing that has the support or anything like that. So I see a lot of picking sides. I have been saying for literally a couple of decades, I think NASCAR is too big for its britches, and I wanted more team support. I have said I'm not big into unions necessarily, but I feel like the teams, the owners, and the drivers needed to collectively form a union to be represented versus NASCAR. You know, in other sports, we have the CBA, and it's the players. It's not the owners. It's the CBA with the ownership and the players. In my opinion, that's completely different in NASCAR because the teams, the owners of the teams are much more in line with what the drivers want and need and are as a group versus ownership in an NFL team and the players. And there isn't much of a representation, and there hasn't been much of a discussion. So I'm wanting to see this play out. I'm not saying it's going to go the way I hope or want. I'm not saying I want to see NASCAR implode. I certainly don't want to see teams implode. I think the more teams we have in the sport, the better it is. I do not believe the charters have worked as designed or what they're supposed to be. We may talk about the new ownership guy that thinks he's going to drive up the costs and all that, but I don't think it's worked out the way it is. I don't think it's the safety net it's supposed to be. And here's the other challenge I have. If we're going to start, because 2311 is basically saying, well, then can we sell our charters? If you're going to force us to run open, can we sell our charters? And I don't necessarily disagree with that, because if you're going to be forced to run as an open, which there's two big points to this as far as being an open team. One, you don't have a guaranteed spot in the field. Now, in all intents and purposes, Sean, lately that hasn't been a thing outside of a handful of tracks, right? We only been getting, I mean, you post it all the time. I post it. Rarely are we sending a team home. We did in Chicago. We have a couple of times, but it's not common. And that's with these guys being guaranteed in and no longer are, okay? The other point, and this is the point I think is more significant that isn't talked about, is the race winnings and the fact that it's significantly less for open teams than it is not open teams. Now, what plays into this that's also not talked about is the contracts with the drivers. Both Bubba Wallace, to my knowledge, and I know for certain Tyler Reddick, I'm almost positive Bubba does too, has it in their contract that they agree to maintain and keep charters. Why would a driver do that? They want a guaranteed spot in the race. If you go back 20 years, we had champions provisionals, we had points, we had all these things to keep the stars in the sport. This is what NASCAR, and I blame Rob Kaufman. I'm not a fan of Rob Kaufman. I think he got rich off a scheme. He may think this is still great and whatnot, but I think he's a POS, and I'm glad he's not in the sport, even though he's trying to ruin some other motorsports as far as I can tell. I don't think it's given the teams the stable financial footing that they thought they would be on. If it did, then why did Stewart-Haas sell everything but one? Why did they get rid of them all and break it all down and get out entirely? The only people who seem to be buying into this is new ownership and the optimistic group that is, well, this is going to work. We see it work and we see the future. When you talk to the ownership that's been around for a long time, they are much more cautious and much less optimistic. And what I find interesting about this lawsuit that I also don't think is talked about, from what I understand and just the interviews and things I've heard, had Richard Childress and Rick Hendrick happened to know this was the angle they were going to go, I'm not certain that Richard Childress and Rick Hendrick don't join this lawsuit. Both of them basically got tired of fighting with NASCAR to keep people employed in their organizations, to the point that when we went to this new car, both organizations found government contracts to work to move talented engineers over to private sector, government sector business in order to offset what was happening there with NASCAR. And all the things that NASCAR has been doing is to try to bring down costs to generate all these things. I don't know how we're bringing down costs when somebody just bought Rick Ware Racing for $100 million, which we haven't, Rick Ware Racing hasn't won anything.
Oh,
so I don't know.
Yeah, and I'm just going to say that there was another new wrinkle added to that whole mess today, too.
I saw that, which, again, we'll get to that at some point. But my overall point is the only people that are buying into this hype that it's great and all this money's coming in is the newbies. The oldies are going, I don't know. We might want to consider an exit plan. And I hate the fact that everyone's like, well, they had time to sign the deal. They had time to look at it. Then why did Rick Hendrick and Richard Childress both go on record and say, I got tired of fighting. I got tired of I caved in. I got tired of worrying about it. If it was that well done and that open, then two of the biggest ownership that has been around for the longest time wouldn't feel beat up and defeated. And they do. So what this means in the grand scheme, I don't know. Are we going to see Tyler Reddick and Bubba Wallace shop around for a ride? Are we going to see 2311 sell the charter so they can get the money back? Because if they're taken away and then NASCAR owns it, how are they not dealing with a huge financial burden that the court said they didn't prove? Because The charters was supposed to be the even money to bring that when the floor fell out, the charters were there to be the safety net. So where do we go now?
As far as some other information is concerned, based on the filing that happened today regarding the injunctions of these charters, NASCAR has agreed that the charters technically, because they never signed the quote-unquote charter agreement to begin with that they set last year for this all in motion, they are like, well, 2311 and Front Row technically never owned their charter, so we still have the control of the charters. But they have agreed, though, within their filing today that they're not going to be selling them to any other teams until the trial is done in December. So that's where it's going to stand.
Which is smart, because I would argue if they did, boy, would it be easy for them to prove financial harm and to prove that NASCAR basically owns it all. I mean, and I feel like this is a real gray area to be playing in, and I think NASCAR played it right. They're winning the PR battle in all of this.
Yeah. Because especially when you consider about all the facets of this case, just for these two teams in order to have their charters through the season, I mean, you haven't really seen too many sites cover this other than the NASCAR-centric sites that are already covering it just because it's a part of the sport and something that is ongoing right there, Rich.
What'll be interesting to me is I want to see the entry list for Indy. If there's a race where we might see more than the allotted spots, Indy is one of those races. It's not historically a great track, but it's Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And from the time of their initial Brickyard in 1994, we have seen an influx of drivers. I want to say in that first Brickyard, there was almost 50 cars that entered that it was on the entry list to qualify to try to make the race, including like AJ Foyt and types. So I'll be curious, because here's the thing, from a NASCAR racing perspective, 2311's got to worry about qualifying now. If they were going to a track where they just wanted to work on race trim, which we don't have much practice, they can't. They have to unload fast and have to qualify well, or they don't make it to the show, potentially.
And you see, that's where the DFS angle and the betting angle comes in, and that's where it could affect somebody like Mark here trying to pay attention and trying to call this race right here. So that's why we've got to make sure to cover it, because now it's actually affecting the racing. Now, they have said, though, as far as the filing is concerned, that races past Indy is still up in the air because the courts are trying to decide about that.
Jesus. This is so stupid.
But at the very least, for this weekend and the next weekend, they're pretty much slated to be open teams, those two teams.
And it feels like 2311 is starting to become drivers we roster if they're like qualifying in the top 10 in a dominator-driven track. So,
good point.
It just feels like if they're starting from the back, they might not make it, I guess. But if they're starting from the back too, you're kind of, you're just driving a little bit tight. You're a little tight in qualifying. You might not, get a feel for your ride. I don't know if that's a true thing or not, but it probably plays a role into how you prepare for a race.
Do you know what concerns me the most, gentlemen, is the impact we'll feel for 2311 next year. And I know that may seem kind of crazy, but we've heard it from drivers. When we're wrecking cars, we're not making cars better, we're fixing cars. When you are collecting less money than you had been collecting, it's a lot harder to self-invest then, right? Because now you're self-investing with a lot less money. So how much, and this is where, again, I'm struggling how the courts are like, there's no financial harm here. There is definitely an advantage by having a charter and having that additional race winnings, whether it's boosting with the sponsorship, so you get more sponsorship money from the guaranteed spots, whether it's you get that extra, because it's about 10% when I did the quick math. Feel free to correct me on that, Sean, but I feel like it varied from spot to spot, but figure about 10%. That's significant enough. I mean, especially when you add that up over the course of however many races we have left this year. And we talk about getting into the playoffs, of influx of 1 million. Well, at 10% over 30 races, you're going to hit that same 1 million. I guess not quite 1 million, but half. It's significant. And this is not good for the sport overall. This is not good for fans. This is not fun from a betting's perspective, because to Sean's point, I do think it potentially impacts it. I don't know to what degree. It's not like 2311 doesn't unload fast most of the time. I'm just saying now, what isn't it just a couple of weeks ago, Tyler Reddick blew a tire in qualifying or something? If that happens again, he's not racing. And now it's in violation of his contract. So what does Tyler Reddick do? Let's say they blow a tire in Indianapolis. I hope I'm not putting this out in the universe because this happens at Indy. Say we blow a tire at Indianapolis during qualifying and Reddick doesn't make the race. What does that do to his contract and the charters? Do we all of a sudden see, I don't know, Cody Ware get bumped out of the Rick Ware machine and Tyler Reddick get forced in?
That in particular, I don't think is going to happen for mainly one reason being that Rick Ware is a Ford team and Toyota's not going to let their drivers drive for a Ford team like that now.
I agree, but I'm just trying to just give an example of, okay, so Reddick doesn't make the race, Sean. We potentially have a couple of extra. Okay. Riley Herbst does. Do they kick Riley Herbst out of the car and put Reddick in?
There is a chance that something like that could happen potentially.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, you see what I'm saying?
From a DFS perspective. Because who do you roster then? I think you would have to roster still Herbst, even though Reddick's driving him. I guess DK would just decide something like that. If they're paying attention.
Yeah, it might count towards Herbst originally, which that in itself is going to mix up scoring right there, which in turn could mix around the ownership percentages of certain drivers anyway, just by that alone.
It could be a huge opportunity, though. There's a lot of DFS players that won't catch it.
But we don't know.
Will fall on a sword before the race starts.
All we know is, and we may never know, if 2311 qualifies in the top 15 in each of the next 2 weeks, which is completely plausible, it could be a non-issue and the courts will figure it out, right?
It won't be an issue this week, but next week, definitely there is the chance that it can be on the table. But really, though, the team I'm more worried about this with is with Front Row because they haven't shown as much speed as 2311 in general.
That's the other thing. We keep talking about Denny Hamlin, Michael Jordan because they're the big names, but we keep leaving out the fact that Front Row is absolutely involved with this. Okay, so does Todd Gilliland have that same policy, Sean? And now it's no longer Rick Ware Racing, it's Spiker or whatever his name is, but it's still a Ford. Do they yank Cody Ware out and put Todd Gilliland in?
In that case, that might be more likely right there. Like, if you were going to do the Rick Ware example, it wouldn't be Tyler Reddick. It would be Todd Gilliland or Noah Gragson or Zane Smith.
Right. That's what I'm saying. And to your point, Sean, they haven't been qualifying in the top 20 every week, top 25. The speed hasn't been the same for them. They've had much better long run race speed. I'm not trying to take it away from Front Row.
Well, Zane Smith has been qualifying closer to the top 20 than the other two. I'll say that much. But
fair.
So he might be more likely to be safe. But if I'm Noah Gragson or Todd Gilliland, I'd be a little bit concerned just even hearing about this.
Even Zane Smith, I would be, because I think there was a race earlier this year that something happened in qualifying and he ended up at the back of the field. Like, these things happen. So to assume it won't, and here's the other domino. Let's just assume that after all the injunctions and all the appeals, it's upheld, and now for the rest of the year, both of those teams have to run that way. One, do we see more teams try to make the race knowing there's more available spots? Or is it status quo and outside of Daytona and Talladega and maybe Darlington, it's not a thing? Or Bristol?
Or Atlanta even, too.
Because Atlanta too.
Yeah. But what I do know is that both of the teams have said that they're prepared to run the rest of the race season as open teams, regardless.
Well, you have to be. So. I would hope to God they would say that. I mean, imagine coming on the mic and being like, we lost our charter. We don't have enough speed. We're praying that our drivers don't leave us because we have it in their contract. We got charters for them, and we don't. We hear some of these other teams are shopping around, but we don't want to tell anybody. Although Daniel Suarez is out there telling everybody they're shopping Kyle Busch's ride around, which makes no sense to me, but whatever. There is so much that can go so many different ways on this that I don't think we could even try to follow all the dominoes, man.
Nah, this is still a developing story, so we're still going to keep up with it in case it affects any other aspects of the racing as it stands on a weekly basis. But this has to be mentioned because it directly affects the racing. This
Yeah,
at least. So.
It can impact DFS. And I think about when Justin Allgaier jumped in Larson's ride to start the race, he still had to roster Larson. So I would think DraftKings would follow. I mean, I would assume, who knows, that DraftKings would follow that same format and you would go with the original driver of that car.
If that's
Unless
the case,
it is
we're
known
going to have
early enough that they're not
yeah.
going to be in the car, in which case they do the Ryan Truex case back at Mexico.
Poor Mark. Poor Mark has no idea what he jumped into with NASCAR stuff. This is NASCAR, man. And if it's not this extreme, it's some other sort of craziness, right? I mean, you know, we used to, at least back in the day, you had to start the race. So Dale Sr. being yanked from the car, he still had to at least start the race and do at least one lap. So from that perspective, for DFS and betting, it wouldn't have changed much for us, right? Because, yeah, there's a driver change, but and we saw this with Eric Almirola in the Xfinity, how he got credit for the win, even though Denny actually drove it to the win and all of that. It's the same sort of hubbub, right? It's just, I don't know that these judges actually grasp the collective impacts on the entire industry.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, it is a very big deal. We're going to have to still keep attention towards this story as it develops further, and if it affects anything else that could affect DFS or betting, we're going to be sure to bring this up again. So there you go. But a couple of other quick stories here that we got to address, though. This one we also have to address this week because this actually is effective immediately. Chris Wright and our Motorsports are parting ways. So Chris Wright, he's been driving that number 5 car in the Xfinity Series all season long. They both agreed to finally leave. And now that our Motorsports machine is going to have different drivers. So far, I believe the plan is that they're going to rotate different drivers in until they have a fully established driver week to week. But for now, they got Kaz Grala in that number 5 car this week.
I thought they said Kaz was in the car till further notice, but I could be wrong on that. But it is Kaz for right now.
It could be Kaz for the rest of the year. That is a possibility too. But just to be sure, we have to kind of keep up with that story every week because we didn't see any official release on that yet, as far as I know.
Na. Hey. Goodbye. I have no love lost. Chris Wright got in the way a lot. He wrecked a lot of equipment that wasn't his. No offense, Chris Wright. You were out of your league, bro. Sorry.
You know, I remember there was a podcast episode we did early on this season when we were recapping Daytona, and then Mark was like, who's that guy that crashed into the one guy that I had in my lineup right there that ruined my day? I can't remember who it was. It was Chris Wright.
Chris
Mark.
Wright.
Always. It's like him and Catherine Legg, man. They're just constantly in the way.
Hey, if we're on a road course, Catherine Legg can drive a car. I just don't trust her on anything that's not a road course.
There.
Well, you'll see her again in 2 weeks at Indy. So.
Oh, shocker! So shocked. So shocked. One of the extra rides. Oh my God, so shocked.
Oh, man. But, you know, something that we would love to be shocked about is NASCAR themselves weighing a return to the Chicagoland Speedway for 2026 right there. So this is something that's been rumored and discussed for a while, but now it seems there's more reports cropping up that NASCAR has been increasing their interest in bringing back Chicagoland.
If this car has done nothing else, it has made the boring tracks interesting. Charlotte, you're my home track, but let's face it, some of the racing there over the years has not been pristine or great or excellent or fun to watch. This car's ruined all the fun tracks, but all the other tracks, it's worked well at. Chicagoland's one of them. Just please, for the love of all things holy, then let's not do the stupid street race. I don't want to go to Chicago twice.
That'd be terrible.
Yeah, I mean, I think the street race at Chicago has kind of ran its course at this point, even though we finally got a race there without rain interfering for once.
It was still stupid. It was still terrible.
The people of Chicago don't like it either, man, because it shuts the whole city down during a holiday.
I know. And in all fairness, I do not blame them. It's hard enough to get around Chicago without chaos. Like, Charlotte Motor Speedway, right? It's there in Concord, northeast side of Charlotte, all right? Away from just about everything. It makes Charlotte traffic horrendous for 4 or 5 days a year around Memorial Day weekend. And it's built and designed for that stuff. And we're not shutting down. I mean, they do speed weeks or used to and shut down a couple of small streets downtown, but it's pretty minor, like any other summer fest that a city does. But come on, man. You are shutting down major roads in Chicago. Like if I was a Chicagoan and not a NASCAR fan, I'd be threatening to torch things.
Valid, but it's still a toss-up of whether they're going to keep the street course or not at Chicago, because it does seem more likely that they're at least going to do the one in San Diego instead.
Just don't do more than. I'm game to try it. It's got to be better than what we had in Chicago. Maybe the roads won't fall apart as much. I don't know.
Well, we'll see what happens. NASCAR still has a lot to cover as far as setting their schedule up for next year, but pretty good chance that we might be seeing some changes on there. That's for sure. And I'm only going to bring this one last story up for today just because it helps bring us some context to why we were talking about Mark's iRacing career at the top of the show right here. But the reason why we talked about it was because Ram has said they're considering making a reality show about driver tryouts for their 2026 Truck Series program that they're adding for next season. And you can say that Mark wanted to throw his hat into the ring in order to drive a Ram truck out there.
Yeah, I mean, I might buy a Ram truck soon, so I might as well just take that right onto the track and attempt to try out for the reality TV show, and so show that I bet a little bit on NASCAR and see if they take me up on that too. So we'll see. In all seriousness, I mean, I'm just it's another element of getting excited for Ram to get back into things here.
Yeah, it's a project that said it's being discussed right now, and if they do move forward with this, Dana White of the UFC said he could get involved with that.
Oh, sign me up, man! I'll get the best iRacing equipment at home right now.
Yeah, so
be part of Dana White's Ram team in the Truck Series. It's like WWE.
He is trying to work with NASCAR on making their e-racing series. And I don't mean the e-racing as in the like the virtual racing. I mean as in the electric vehicle series right there. He's trying to work with NASCAR on that.
That's a real thing? Is that actually real?
Yeah. This is what it sounds like, Mark. Being dead serious. Yeah, exactly. Your face, we need to screenshot that because he just said with his face all the words I couldn't say on mic. So I'll leave it at
that. Oh, you know what? Maybe we should just post that after the show, and you know what? See if any of the guys in the Discord chats will be able to pick up on the meaning of that. That would be fun. Post it on social media, post it on Discord, just Mark's expression right there. And we can be like, why is Mark making this face? Watch this week's RaceGuru Thunder Hour.
My reaction to EV racing.
Well, Mark, here's the thing. The fan outrage because anyone that's been to a track will openly tell you some of the greatest parts of being there is the sound and the smell in the field. When they come by at full speed, you've been there, Mark. There is something about that wind coming by, the roaring of the motors, that smell of the racing fuel, right? Like it's all very distinct and unique. So people are like, you do the EVs and we don't have any of that. So what was NASCAR's idea behind it? We're going to add sound to the cars. Boom, boom, boom. Dead serious. That's the solution. Again, Green's got that one again, Sean. He did it again. Exactly.
Like, sponsored by Duracell and Tesla. The batteries that keep going. Next thing you know, the batteries fry out left and right throughout the race.
Oh, goodness. They're already complaining about battery issues in the Cup Series now.
And they're only 12 volts.
Oh, man. Hopefully they fix that then. But who knows? We might still be a while away from that being a reality right there. So I guess what we should do instead is whoosh. our way into the now that is this week's Cup race there. We got Dover on deck, so finally we have a little bit more closer to a normal-ish kind of race again after 2 weeks of road racing and a super speedway event the week before that. So it's been a little bit odd the last couple of weeks, but hey, we finally got ourselves a regular old oval again. But this time we're on concrete right here. So this is one of the 3 concrete tracks in the NASCAR Cup Series, along with Nashville and Bristol. And notable for this week is that they're testing a brand new tire compound for this week's Cup race that they have not tried at any other track. So there's a bit of a wild card element being thrown into play with Goodyear having a new tire setup this week, fellas.
So Miles is kind of Bristol on steroids, right? Miles, that's the mascot. They have a big concrete mascot. The winner ends up with the car, and he holds it out in front of the track. And Dover's been called the Monster Mile forever. Bristol on steroids. What if we get like the Bristol race of a couple of years ago, guys, where we have 54 different leaders and only 6 cars on the lead lap? I'm not going to lie. Sign me up. I'm okay with it. This idea of how many cars we have on the lead lap makes a good race or bad race, I'm not with. I've come to that conclusion. I used to be that guy. Hey, the more cars we have on the lead lap, the better the racing is. I completely disagree. And I'll give you the example. I can put a conveyor line together at work, and I can have all my boxes on said conveyor, and they will never gain on each other and will be at the exact same spot all the way around conveyor. It does not mean anything other than we have consistent production. That's it. And that's all we've gotten at some of these tracks. So if we're going to have tires, because Dover's notoriously been tougher on tires. So I'm really curious to hear. I will not be shocked if we hear a lot of complaints about tires in practice, guys.
Oh, yeah. Then you know that the broadcast is going to be talking all about that tire compound all throughout this week in the Cup race. Now, for the Xfinity Series race, that's not going to change. It's still going to be what we've been used to for Xfinity. It's just for Cup that they're doing this right here. So that's something to note before getting into this week's race. But other than that, the basic DFS and betting strategies, well, we are going to finally want to maybe get some Dominator action into this week's races right here, because the lap counts are finally going to be higher right there, and we might just end up seeing only a few drivers dominate at the time. Oh, so that right there goes hand in hand with the DFS strategy of the race. Well, we do want to get drivers that also finish, though, too. That's also important, too.
This is a self-cleaning track, they call it. What happens, 1 or 2 cars get into it, they slide up the track, and it is very steeply banked, and they come back down the track, and they clear out the entire area. So we will deal with some randomness. If the tires are a challenge, we could have potentially a lot of wrecked race cars. If the tires hold up okay, we may not. We will do what, 400 laps, Sean? Because I think it's a 400-mile event. Am I correct on that? I have not put my overview together yet, so I'm going off of memory.
It is 400 laps. You are correct about that.
Because they shortened the 500-mile race. We used to do 500 laps here back in the day. So we do 400 laps. It's a 1-mile track. We do 400 miles. A couple of cool things you'll see. There's an overpass, a walking man bridge overpass that you'll see them drive under. That's always kind of cool. You will hear the drivers talk about the roller coaster or liftoff. Because of the steep embankment, they tend to, I don't want to say jump or get airborne, but they come off a slope. And Jimmy Johnson was notorious for it, and Jimmy Johnson absolutely owned this track. So I won't be shocked if Legacy shows us a little something this week.
Jimmy did describe this as his favorite personal racetrack to go to whenever he used to race full-time in Cup. I mean, the dude's got double-digit wins here, so he knows how to get around this place.
And he used to tell Chad Knaus on landing. And what he was talking about was he would have this weightlessness feeling coming off the embankment down to the low side of the track. And sure enough, you hear drivers talk about it. I've never actually seen the cars not have all 4 wheels on the track, but I've also never been in a car at Dover at 180 or 170 miles an hour like they are either.
So I think from a DFS perspective that this is such a switch up from what we've seen, I don't know, probably over the last 4 weeks. I mean, I guess Atlanta was probably the most comparable to a certain degree, but the problem is I think a lot of people from a DFS perspective have a hard time changing their process, especially over that period of time. So just expect there are going to be a lot of DFS players that will chase place differential more than you should this week. This is like we need to focus on dominators a little bit more. And I also think we need to be ready to not go after the big name that is starting 33rd, because there's a chance they could fall down early, a lap down early and get caught 2 laps down or something along those lines if any type of issues arise. So exactly. So I think you have to be careful of how you build your lineups, because how it worked in the last month or so is not going to be how it works this weekend.
No, you are absolutely right about that, Mark. And that's not even mentioning the fact that Dover in of itself is a challenging track in order for drivers to make passes as well, too. It is not easy in order to go up through the field on this track.
And if the temps are up, don't be shocked to hear about driver lack of comfort, driver fatigue, because of the speeds they run. And as tight as this oval is, this in Bristol really seems to wear on drivers. Like where we've seen drivers pulled from the car, sitting on bags of ice, getting ice dumped on them, feeling nauseous, the fumes, all these types of things that are exhilarate, right? Like we don't really take them into consideration. And I think Mark's onto something. Like maybe our sweet spot this week is if you're chasing, because you're still going to want to chase 1 or 2, right? We always got to have a little bit of action on the place differential, but maybe we should be targeting like that low to mid 20s range for some contrarian plays that maybe flirt with a top 10, top 15.
Maybe even some of the drivers that start between like around 15th to 20th even.
I think I would go I would go all the way back to like 25th, 26th, 27th. Because you can get I think Justin Haley, and that's a sneak peek to one of my value plays, but it's like Justin Haley, if he's starting 25th, I mean, he's historically doing pretty well to get himself into the high teens. That's all you need from like a $5,500 driver.
True.
If he can just hang in 20th by late stages of the race, next thing you know, he's one of 15 drivers a lap down and can easily get nice place differential. But you get stuck 32nd, you fall back a lap at the beginning of the race, you fall back a second lap after stage 2, you're out. Like there's no chance for place differential at that point, unless you get like a bunch of huge wrecks or something ridiculous. Right. Yeah.
But here again, if you're starting 32nd, what are your chances of not getting involved in one of those accidents, right?
Yeah. So that's the other issue. Exactly.
It's true. There are a lot of issues that can come up upon this very race. But what isn't an issue is FantasyGuru.com, because, just as a reminder, we have NFL packages in the draft guide available. We have MLB content also available. Plenty of packages right there. And just as a reminder, you can hit up support at FantasyGuru.com in order to get the best possible deal you can. Just had to get that out there. Now we can transition back right into our picks and such. How about we get into it, fellas? Right into our driver picks? All right.
Let's do it.
Top price. Well, actually, before we get into there, I forgot. We do have to mention the list of the part-timers and notables right here. Skipping ahead right here. So I know the Xfinity Series has a very, very large and interesting list of names right here. So do you want me to read it off instead, Rich, since it looks like you're not on the document right here to read the names?
I'm just on here now if you want me to hit them.
All right, then. You can hit him. I think you'd find it interesting.
So, as we mentioned earlier, our sports, number 5, Kaz Grala will be driving that car. He is more of a road racer by trade, but he has driven a bunch of tracks in the Cup Series. So, it'll be very interesting to see how bad or how good that car finishes with somebody that's notoriously decent enough to not wreck a car and put himself in bad spots. Nick Light's in the 07 SS Greenlight Racing Machine. Ross Chastain gets to drive the number 9 Junior Motorsports. Don't sleep on that guy. Garrett Smithley, number 14 SS Greenlight Racing. Jake Finch, who is I looked it up, is the son of James Finch, who is 75, by the way, and Jake is 20. You guys figure that out. He will be in the number 17 Hendricks Motorsports Xfinity ride. There was a little scuttlebutt, as Sean and I had discussed earlier, that Raja's not in it. I don't know a lot about Jake Finch's racing background, but I will dig into it. Eric Amarola is back with the number 19 Joe Gibbs Racing Toyota. Yeah, he can be really good here. So another name. I'm already looking at Ross and Eric for this week, just as a precursor or a little tease. Ryan Truex will be with Sam Hunt Racing, the number 24. Raja Caruth is going to get to drive in this event, but he's with the number 32 Jordan Anderson Racing. Is that a Chevy there, Sean? I believe Jordan Anderson.
It is a Chevy. It is a Chevy.
Yep. Glenn Reed, the number 35 Joey Gase Motorsports car. LeVar Scott in the number 45 Alpha Prime machine. David Starr will be back with number 53 Joey Gase Motorsports. Leland Honeyman, we get another shot with him at number 70 Cope Family Racing. And Josh Balicki is back in the 91 for DGM Racing. There are 40 entries for only 38 spots, so 2 will go home. I have my thoughts on who those 2 might be, but we will have to wait and see.
Yeah. But just as a shout out right there, and just to acknowledge this, Jake Finch and LeVar Scott are the 2 drivers are both making their Xfinity Series debuts for this week's race. So those 2 drivers have no prior experience with this type of car and this type of racing on this very track. As far as the Cup Series is concerned, there's only one open entry. That's JJ Yaley in the number 44 for NY Racing. So don't expect too much performance-wise from that team. So
I might fade JJ. Might go out on a limb and fade JJ this week.
You think? You think, Rich?
Maybe.
I know Mark is like, oh, I'm absolutely fading him. You can tell by his expression. We're just reading Mark's expressions a lot today.
They're great, though.
Say anything.
Just
kind of give a look.
You would be an amazing in-live narrator, Mark. Like the background and then your facial expressions would like tell the whole story. It's quite impressive. I got to give you a hat tip on that tonight.
Yeah, he's been very expressive without vocally being expressive.
I had a couple ideas, but I'm gonna keep that internally.
Oh, come on, share it with us.
Yeah, come on, man.
Get vocal.
No. It'll no.
All right. If we talk about driver picks and making money, maybe we'll get it out of him that way.
There you go.
There we go. Let's go make some money.
Top price picks to watch for this week's race. I've got Denny Hamlin, Chase Elliott, and Ross Chastain. This feels like a Denny Hamlin kind of week to me. He's really good on the concrete. He's won at this track before. Ross Chastain, he's been a strong performer in the next-gen car at this track. And then Chase Elliott is another historically strong performer at this track overall as well. So all 3 of these drivers have finished in the top 5 in 2 of the last 3 races in the next-gen car. I think all of them are going to be very strong this week. Hamlin's led his fair share of laps right here, the second most in the next-gen car with 207 laps led. Ross Chastain has the third most at 184. So I think all 3 of these drivers are going to be competitive, and I like them quite a bit this week.
I like those calls, Sean. What do you got, Mr. Mark?
I went Hamlin, Chastain, and Byron. So all the reasons that Sean had mentioned for Hamlin and Chastain. I think Byron is an interesting one because, you know, he did have a DNF in the next-gen car over the last 3 years, I want to say. Where did that go? Yes. So he DNF'd, which skews his statistics a little bit, but he actually has the most laps led of any driver in the next-gen car. So what's that?
And he's had 2 seconds, I believe.
And 2 sec? Yeah. 2. No, he's been in 1 top 5.
Oh, my bad.
3 total in his Cup career, but only 1 in the next-gen car.
The next-gen car.
Right, that's right. So, but I think the biggest thing is a lot of people are going to go in a couple different directions. I think specifically Hamlin, Chastain, maybe even Chase Elliott. I think Byron might be one of our lower owned top tier drivers, and I'm more than happy rostering William Byron.
I love it. I love that call. I'm with you on Byron. Byron's kind of my favorite play, and I am a little biased. I'm going beyond the next gen data here. Hendrick, in large part to Jimmy Johnson, but Jeff Gordon ran well here as well. And we have seen a lot of times where Jeff Gordon has run well. This 24 team has carried over notes. Byron needs to kind of get off the schneid. They've been stepping on their own, you know what, lately. The speed's been there. They were the fastest car in practice in Chicago. They broke. They were a non-factor, basically all race, although they did get bound up. They got damage early on. He started out the race really as the second fastest car behind SVG. And then on one of the restarts, got dinged up. They've got to get back on it. So I'm with you on Byron. I've got some of the data skewed there, Mark, so my apologies, but I know he's run well here. Another team that shocked me a little bit with how they've run well here is Team Penske. So I'm wanting a little bit of Ryan Blaney love this weekend. So give me some Byron, give me some Blaney. I'm hoping both of them will be a little more contrarian, because my other guy isn't going to be contrarian. That's Denny Hamlin. And you guys want to bet storylines? How ironic would it be if Denny Hamlin goes to victory lane after losing all these injunctions in court?
It sounds like it's happening already. Like that is
right?
It's in the making. Yeah.
It just sounds like
such a Denny Hamlin win. It's
right?
such a Hamlin win.
So what does he say? Instead of I beat your favorite driver, what does he say? Does he go, hey, NASCAR, I can still win a race? Like, I mean, I'm just kind of curious of what potentially comes out of his mouth if he were to win. Like, maybe we could put up a raffle or some blinds on something like that, because that might be kind of fun to bet on. Although I
beat your favorite organization. Now I've proven that I can drive, and maybe you should give us money because we'll put on a better show with me in it.
I do want to mention this because I'm going to forget if I don't. I came across an interesting stat from a friend. So shout out to Randall Kennedy, one of my football buddies. He started up the Undroppables. The Undroppables. Had a fun crew over there. Knows his football stuff, knows his racing stuff. He lives down there in the Carolinas now. You can find him on Twitter at FF Terminator. Yeah, I don't know how much he's on there as much anymore, but he was a fantastic follow. Anyway, Randall shared this stat with me, and I want to give a shout out to our buddy Dylan, because I'm not sure he knows this, but this is a fun stat. So Chase Elliott just finished his 20th consecutive top 20 finish this past weekend. We know that he was in the top 5, right? Mm-hmm. There is one driver who has finished top 20 in every race in the season in the history of NASCAR. That driver finished 29 races, so this was before we went to 36, back in 1988, and he goes by the name of Bill Elliott. So how interesting is it that his son is the only guy that's on pace to potentially match that record? I found that stat absolutely wild. I think Chase is absolutely going to finish top 20. I hope I don't jinx him. I think Chase Elliott, you guys kind of alluded to him and hinted at him. He could very easily be a top 5 guy here. And I don't know that the ownership is going to be there. My hat tip to Gustafson, because I've kind of dogged on him as a crew chief. But it's no small feat. Look, it's difficult enough to not have any DNFs. But to straight up have 20 consecutive top 20 finishes, that's impressive. And to think that only his dad is the only one that's got basically more at 29, I thought was an absolute wild stat that I wanted to share.
You know, speaking of Chase Elliott, have you even looked at his entire career here? Because I think it's just as wild when you really think about it, too.
I have not.
14 Cup Series races. He has just 2 DNFs that were due to an accident and an engine failure. All those other 12 races, he has finished no worse than 12th, and only 2 times other than the DNFs, he's finished outside the top 10, and all those other finishes, top 5 every time.
Wow. That is wild. Okay, notes. Maybe move from Byron to Elliott. Or
do you just go Team Hendrick and run them both?
Honestly, you could make the argument Larson should be in that conversation. I don't know that we could throw all three of those guys in, but Bowman's price point, which we'll get to in a minute, that might work.
The thing is that I don't mind Byron, and I definitely love Elliott because I made him one of my picks this week. I'm not as sold on Kyle Larson as much compared to those two. Just even though the thing is that within the past 6 races, Larson does have 5 finishes of 6th or better, including 4 podium finishes, which is kind of nuts in itself too. But
I can't seem to get warm and fuzzy this week on it, Sean. Like the data screams Kyle Larson needs to be in our discussion, yet none of us picked Kyle Larson. Why? I mean, I can speak for me. Ever since, and this is talked about, he got interviewed. I don't know what happened at Indy, man, but he seemed dejected, burnt out, wore out at one of the interviews I saw for the Coke 600. It was to the point where I was like, maybe I'm going to pull him out of my Coke 600 lineup because he just doesn't sound like himself. He doesn't sound like himself lately. The performances haven't been there. Byron's had his own struggle. Elliott's on the trajectory up. Bowman's been doing everything kind of to get there. I think I'd rather have Elliott and Bowman than if I had to find a way to get Larson in my lineup.
But the only thing I would say, let's just consider this too. On DraftKings, he's still tied with Hamlin as a potential favorite here. And the other element to Larson is think about, again, the tracks that we've gone to over the last 4 or 5 weeks. So we're talking about highly volatile road courses, a super speedway.
Atlanta.
So it's kind of just like, okay, yes, recency bias says, like, where is Larson? He's just kind of this driver that's there. He's feeling dejected. Maybe it's just because he hasn't ran a track that he likes in maybe 3 or 4 weeks.
But even that claim I can kind of dispute a little bit because Sonoma is a track that Larson absolutely loved and has owned.
But he was up there for a long period of the race until the end, right? I mean, he was in it until the end of that race.
But even so, my whole thing is that Larson just hasn't shown the same old dominant speed that he showed before Charlotte right there. You even look back towards all the races since Charlotte. Well, from Charlotte, when he wrecked onward, he's only led 3 laps at Sonoma, and that's it.
Man,
he's been at other tracks, include that he's even been great at before. Michigan and Pocono didn't lead a single lap there either.
This is just making me want to play Larson because it just feels like we might get a Larson at single-digit ownership. And what if we just get that Hamlin versus Larson, showdown towards the end of this race?
I'd be all for that, but OGB Snacks brought up a point. The money's come in on Larson on the bets. His odds have dropped. He was at 650, 700, and now he's down to 500. So clearly the betting market is on Larson, which almost has me going, I'm out. Because I really don't like to be with the masses as a general rule, especially early on the week, because we haven't seen practice, we haven't seen qualifying. So what that tells me is everybody's like, we're back to an oval, we're back to his bread and butter. This is Larson's season. And what I'm saying is, and in all fairness to Larson, outside of Elliott and Bowman, both the 24 and the 5 they can't get out of their own way. At least I can look at Byron and say the speed has been there much more so than Larson. But something, and some of this is just a gut thing, Mark. Something is off, in my opinion, with Larson. I don't know what it is. It sounded like that in the interview. He seemed fine when I met him at the high limit thing. I think he was sandbagging there. Maybe he's doing too much racing. He's just getting burnt out. Dude's what, 35 now? 32? Like, he's doing a lot of racing for, when I was that age, I couldn't do it. I didn't have the stamina for it. So I don't know. It just, when all the money's coming that direction and I'm not feeling it, I feel like kind of validated, and I'm okay being, the fish swimming upstream, if you will.
So maybe that money is just a few big whales. Like what
could be?
What type of money is coming in on it? Because especially if it came in early this week with no indicators later in the week, that quickly.
I trust your judgment.
I think it goes either way. I think it goes either way, but is he a great tournament option? In my opinion, yes.
Oh, for
is
sure.
he? Do I feel good about rostering him? Absolutely not. Do I think that I think that ownership might be down this week given this conversation? Yes, I think it will be.
Who would have thought that we'd hear Mark Hogan say he would not be comfortable owning Kyle Larson this season?
Yeah.
Well, who would have thought?
This is the stuff that Mark brings that at least I need to push back on some of the numbers, right? Like I like chasing the stories and some of the narratives. I don't necessarily know how to read the bets. Mark brings up a great point. Was it just a couple of whales? It's very plausible. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say yes or no either way. I have no idea. I just find it interesting that, as OGB pointed out, that's a significant movement on the line, and we haven't even gotten to the stinking track yet. So what is going on? And that leads me to believe people are chasing some old data. To Mark's point, Larson's not known for road racing fair, but he's run well at Watkins Glen and Sonoma. I mean, he won last year at Sonoma in this event. So why was he not a bigger factor this week, right? He ran well earlier this year on the road courses at COTA, for example, right? But I'm with Sean. There is something missing from Larson's team right now that I can't put my finger on. At least at Mexico City, they repaired it. Cliff Daniels, hat tip, repaired it. We set the fastest lap, so we get the extra bonus point. You know what? And maybe that's what it is, Sean. We haven't talked about that. Larson's locked into the playoffs. We saw this for years with Chad Knaus in the 48. This is the time of the year when Jimmy Johnson would constantly kind of struggle and be a non-factor, and everybody be like, see, there's chink in the armor. Like, he's not all that. And then all of a sudden, we find out, well, they were playing with stuff with the car. They wanted to see what they had. They were resting up. And now, all of a sudden, 2-3 weeks from now, as we get into middle of August, Larson leads the most laps and sets the fastest lap. That's plausible. I could see that working out. Right now, Hendrick is focused on two things, in my opinion: getting the 9 and the 48 guaranteed playoff spots. The 9, did they win, Sean? They did.
Yeah, so they won at Atlanta, so they're currently in. It's just getting the 9 more playoff points.
Right. And the 48 has to get in. So from a team perspective, they won all 4 cars in the playoffs. Bowman's knocking on the door. He's on the cusp of getting in or not. Elliott's in, but in order for him to make a run, and I like the fact that Elliott is kind of trending this way. This bodes well for his championship run. Like, if you want a little bit of a longer shot right now to take a bet on the championship, I could see chasing Elliott with these odds right now. I don't know what they're at, but I bet you they're
plus 900, Rich. Just
okay. I was going to guess about 10 to 11 to 1, but at 9 to 1, I can see it. I'd probably like him a little bit longer, but I can see it.
Yeah.
So, well, let's move on to our other. I think we've talked that poor horse to death, but this is where, Mark, you bring such an aspect that I appreciate, because if you're going to win a tournament, there's a couple of things you've instilled in me that I remind myself every time I do a lineup. If I love a lineup, and that's not always the case, there have been times I felt really good about a lineup, and the lineup really did do well. But in all of those lineups, there was always at least one driver where I was like, this is kind of a wild gut shot. Like, I like it, but this is kind of a wild gut shot. Or it's, I need a contrarian driver. I like this guy. I don't think people will be on him. He's starting near the front. This is a bit contrarian. So I've had to bring these aspects in. So when you're like, hey, if that brings down Larson's ownership, now I am intrigued, because if something happens, we know he's capable.
The only problem is that, like you said, the money did come in on him. His odds are now tied with Denny. So there is an element where there's going to be some natural ownership there, just because he's considered tied as a favorite. So I'd be curious to see how that line moves if it goes back. Maybe we see it bounce back to plus 750. And to me, if that happens, that would be another positive indicator to roster him, because ownership is trending downwards.
My whole thing for Larson is, I think he can definitely get a top 10 finish. I think that's a pretty good chance of that happening. But as far as race winning speed is concerned, I think that's debatable.
So, and here is the contrarian element: is Larson could start like 20th. Like, I mean, he started 21st and finished second 2 years ago, I think. So, I mean, he might be your one place differential, that guy that you chase and doesn't have insane ownership. who can go from 20th to 3rd. And then you play 2 guys that start in the top 5, and those are your 2 dominators. And then you scrape the bottom of the barrel to fill out your lineup. I personally think this is a stars and scrubs type of week again.
I do think that's certainly on the table, Mark. And you pointed out about Larson with his qualifying results. He did start 21st last year, and then the year before that, he started 18th. I think that's certainly in play again this week. And especially because we also got the wild card of the different tire compound, and also the wild card of this being at a different time of year than past Dover races being also a wild card too.
It can be so hot, man. I am really curious to see the temps because it can get hot this time of year.
Yeah. But enough about Larson. We did give a lot of analysis there. Let's get into the mid-tier drivers. So for me, I basically got Chris Buescher because he's a driver that scored top 10s in a few of the recent races here at Dover. And then
can we rename him
to Mr. Top 10? Is that what you're
can we just name Chris Buescher Mr. Top 10?
Fine with me. I can get behind that.
I'm good with it.
Yeah, he has 10 top 10 finishes so far this season, which that there's only been 11 and 12 top 10 guys this year, and that's the only types of drivers that got more than him so far. So average finish of 14.1 overall for the season. Yeah, I'd say he can basically earn that status right there. Yeah.
We'll give him the moniker of Mr. Top 10, Chris Mr. Top 10 Buescher.
Yeah. But as the other 2 drivers that I listed in my mid-tier picks, I actually like more for DFS this week. I'm going to first of all name the lower guy, Josh Berry, because Berry, this is a track where I think he might surprise, and how he's priced this week is lower than normal for an oval type of race. And I think people are forgetting about how great he was at this track in the Xfinity Series. 3 starts, 3 finishes a second or better with 1 victory right there in the Xfinity Series. He knows how to get around here. And even historically speaking, within the track itself in the Cup Series, 2 top 15 finishes and 2 Cup starts in the next-gen car. So I do think that Berry is going to be one to watch. And this last guy on my list, Rich, I know you've been tooting his name for weeks upon weeks upon weeks. I'm going to be like you and say that I'm very much into Ty Gibbs this week.
They're finally putting the consistency together, man. I mean, we're seeing the speed of the other Gibbs cars show up in the 54 finally, and we knew it was coming, right? It was just a matter, at least we assumed it was. He wasn't going to lose his ride being the grandson. So, I mean, it was just they were going to throw everything they could at it, and he's earned his worth all the way through. I'm glad you went that route because I don't necessarily think, in fact, I don't want to be a spoiler. You guys both liked him, but this is not necessarily the first track I think of when I think of Ty Gibbs, and so the fact that you guys are both showing a little excitement here, I feel like maybe I'm not excited enough.
No, you got to be real excited for Ty Gibbs this week. Even the data points to him having a pretty good day at Dover.
It does.
2 starts, scored positive place differential both times, finished in the 10th position last year. He's been pretty good at this track in the Xfinity Series despite not winning. He showed a lot of speed, ran top 10, top 5 often in the Xfinity car at this track. I mean, Ty Gibbs, he's been really hot lately too. Ever since Michigan, when he finished 3rd, he is yet to finish outside the top 15. So that's for the last 6 races, top 15 every time. Never finished lower than 14th. 3 of those being top 10s.
But see, you hit something ahead why it's not the first track I think of, because Ty Gibbs won it just about everywhere in the Xfinity Series and Truck Series, right? This wasn't one of them. And that's what's interesting to me. I got to tell you, though, guys, you're talking me into Josh Berry because I mentioned Penske earlier. I forget that Barry's kind of a satellite Penske team.
It is.
And he really was good here in the Xfinity Series. I'll just hit mine real quick because I'm kind of blending it in here. But I went Mr. Top 10, and maybe I got two guys I'd like to maybe reconsider for Josh Berry, but I got Mr. Top 10, Chris Buescher. I am with Ty Gibbs with you guys, and I like Kyle Busch. I know I've been kind of a Busch stan, but he keeps rattling off these top 10s when we don't think he should. They've been pretty good here the last couple years. I mean, it's not been walls on fire type good, but it's been solid enough. The thing is, though, I got to tell you, to Mark's point, if we're going to go stars and scrubs, I sure would love to save the $1,500 from Kyle Busch and go to Josh Berry.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too. It's like Kyle Busch, he's got a lot of laps led though, so that's also an element of this that you have to consider if he starts on the pole. Like the last 2 years, he started on the pole, and I think that's why he's got a lot of those laps. So it's almost keep an eye out for that, because that data is skewed based off of him starting on the pole, and if he doesn't, that opportunity might not be there. So when you're doing your research, just factor that. Josh Berry and Ty Gibbs, I threw him in there as well. Ty Gibbs is the best bang for your buck, given the data, like Sean talked about. I say more of a cash game play than tournament, though, because he's going to have, I think because all the data is there on him, he's going to command ownership. And Ty Gibbs is, I mean, it just kind of feels like a DNF to me for some reason. So just be a little wary of that. Josh Berry, though, especially for Xfinity purposes, I'm on board with that too. And I think it's just a guy that also feels like he's starting to make a nice positive turn in the season. So I've got another play on Josh Berry here in a moment.
Yeah, I really like Josh Berry. Just to comment on Kyle Busch, I do think that Busch is an interesting call. It's just the speed can go either way with RCR on any given week.
That's my concern, right? And if I can save the $1,500 and go to Berry, like it's really tough to not want to do that. Again, maybe I'm reading too much in Joey Logano and Ronnie Blaney's finishes and all of that. I already said I was kind of on the Blaney up top. And, funny thing is part of the reason I've liked Gibbs so much the last month is his ownership hasn't been high. And you're right, Mark. I think those days are behind us.
Yeah.
Kind of missed the train, yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. But I know how much you like banking on the storylines there, Rich. Here's one more storyline that I'll mention for you in regards to a driver you just happened to mention right there, Joey Logano. He's making his 600th Cup start this week. So that's something in order to note right there.
He runs well in the Northeast, whether it's Dover, whether it's New Hampshire, for whatever reason. Joey, he runs well in the Northeast. So 600 start, I can see it. Although it is kind of fun watching people push back on Joey lately when he starts getting mad when he gets bumped around, and they're like, you do the same thing. Like, I'm starting to really enjoy the fact that people are pushing back on Joey Logano to the point where he's like, yeah, maybe Junior's right. I'm being a sore loser. Like that. My hatred for Joey is disappearing, guys.
He just, I feel like the issue, like next gen car, he hasn't had a positive place differential day yet. But then you go back, and then he's like top 10s every single race. So I don't know.
He knows how to gut out those finishes. That's really what he's been doing, because that 22 team has not exactly been the fastest most weeks. That's for sure.
The 12 has looked so much consistently faster than the 22, like week in and week out. And yet you look at the finishes and they're not that much different. Like, it's the weirdest thing.
I think that it also has to do with the fact that Blaney is not getting the luck that he's been trying to get with some of his finishes too. That's for sure.
If it's not the car, it's the team, right? The pit crew. I mean, they have found more ways to lose races or give up good finishes than anybody else in the series, in my opinion, right now.
Yeah. In fact, actually, Blaney has, I believe, the second most DNFs of all drivers this year, too. Only behind, I believe, Bubba Wallace with 6.
And all three. Now, funny, the irony about this, the 3 best friends in the garage, Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney, Bubba Wallace. That's serious. Like they asked who they would pick as teammates, and somehow the three of them all ended up picking each other, right? They are all best buddies. Two of them can't seem to not get the DNFs, and the other guy just seems to finish everything in the top 20. It's just the strangest thing to me, man.
Yeah, it is quite wild right there as it is. I thought Joey was also going to get mad at Ross again for punting his Daniel Suarez into him at Sonoma. Because those two can't seem to get away from each other.
Opportunity offender. No, they can't. But we see this, right? It always seems like drivers that are similar in speed end up near each other all the time. And we always get, where drivers are next to each other for the year, it seems like, right? And the haulers are next to each other because of the point standings and everything else. Like it just gets wild. But hey, if there's going to be two guys that are going to beat each other up with their cars, I have no problem with being Ross and Joey. They've done it enough to everybody else.
Yeah, though I'm sure you're like, keep doing what you're doing, Ross. You're making it entertaining.
That's serious. Like I really don't have a problem with it. It's kind of like Hocevar. I'm sure his name is Mud in the garage, but I'm not hating it.
Definitely.
He's gonna get his own at some point. It's gonna come.
And Hocevar does not care. He does not.
No,
care.
He doesn't. He doesn't.
He went on Dale Jr.'s pod and even was like, "Oh, I have no friends, and I'm fine with that."
He's not getting paid to have friends. Let's be honest.
He's like, the only friends of mine I care about are my iRacing buddies, and that's it.
Until he can't get a charter.
Yeah, well, he's got one.
Yeah.
So now Tyler Reddick's jealous.
For now. There might be a lot more competition for them in the near future.
I tell you what, though, Mark, Hocevar I'm more interested in for silly season, because if anybody could potentially jump that is under contract, they could jump from an okay ride to a better ride. I think Hocevar's the guy. His name may be Mud among the drivers, but I guarantee you among sponsors and teams, it's not Mud. It's
I'm
going to see if I can cut a deal to get this guy.
Yeah. I know people are going to bring up the fact about when Chad Knaus talked to him at Atlanta right there.
I mean, in all seriousness, would I be shocked if Hocevar was in the 48 in 2 years? No, I wouldn't be.
You got to be classy. I don't consider Hocevar and classy in the same sentence.
No, but I tell you what, don't forget Kyle Busch was there, and Kyle Busch got a very long rope. And I would argue Hocevar is far more classy than Kyle Busch was at this stage of his career. I love Kyle Busch. I love the dryness. I love the I don't give an F attitude. I love the telling it like it is. It reminds me very much of Dale Sr. Hocevar is much more cognizant of the words he used. So after the whole Mexico City came down and he got in trouble for the comments he made, lots of people came to his defenses to the point that he said, please, everybody, I made a mistake. I'm owning the mistake. Please don't. People must have been coming at Spire and the team, because he basically was like, white flag, we're fine. I have a job. I'm fine with it. I screwed up. Just let us be type of thing. So I feel like he has you're right about the classiness, but let's not forget how Kyle Larson ended up there. Far from a classy decision that put him out of a ride to begin with, right? So, although Hocevar kind of made a similar comment of sorts right down in Mexico City, so maybe there is a little bit of overlap. I don't know, but if I'm Rick Hendrick, I gotta believe Hocevar's on the short list of guys I'd like to add.
Yeah, probably. But let's get on our short list of sleepers and values right here in order to add for our DFS lineups this week. So for me, I've got Ricky Stenhouse Jr. to start right there. I do think that this is a track that Ricky's displayed some solid results at before. He's displayed a bit more speed this year overall, just in general. So I think there's potential for Ricky in order to have a good run this week. And then I'm going with the two Legacy Motor Club drivers right there, Eric Jones and John Hunter Nemechek. This has historically been a very good track for Eric Jones in the Cup Series. You look back towards even the two starts that he had in the next-gen car, He had a 16th place run and a 10th place finish right there. He did not participate in last year's race at Dover because of an injury, but almost all other times he's been top 20. In fact, actually, his lowest finish in his Cup career at Dover in 11 starts is 22nd. He has 9 top 20 finishes in 11 Cup starts at Dover, which in and of itself is kind of impressive right there. And John Hunter, Legacy's just been showcasing a lot of strong speed regardless of track type this season. And considering that JHN is priced where he is, I want in on that, especially because he's also been solid in the Xfinity Series at this track, and he also scored a top 20 finish in his only previous Cup start at this very track, too. Give me some JHN as well.
Yeah, I'm with you on JHN. I just think there's so many different indicators on that front. I think, Rich, you brought up a great point about Jimmy Johnson too. That just sells me more on him. He's going to have he's going to be the highest owned of all of your value plays under 6K. But quite frankly, I might be willing to do that because I'm probably going after multiple guys under 6K. I also threw out Todd Gilliland at 5,400 and Justin Haley at 5,500. Although now I don't know, with him driving for Front Row, if this is going to be an issue, if he finishes or if he gets a qualifying position, I guess. And well, is that going to play a role in this race? No,
they will for sure. There's not enough entries, so they will for sure have an entry into this race no matter what.
So maybe he's got a little bit of heat under his, and he starts. We're looking for like a 35th starting spot. There's some concern there. Like that's a true tournament only play. But Justin Haley, I really like him across the board. He's typically qualifying around the 25th spot. He's landing in the 19th position. This is a guy that hasn't been that wonderful as of recent. But again, if we're thinking of the narrative of not chasing recency bias, this is another maybe bounce back opportunity in the value tier.
He better get, I tell you what, someone that needs a fire under his mark is Haley. And I will say this much. If he doesn't start putting some performances on the track, because guess what? His two teammates have. Hocevar, we've already talked about, and Michael McDowell's been up and down at some of the ovals, but he's always been up and down at some of the ovals. But at the super speedways, he's been near the front, which is his, creme de creme, along with the road races. And he showed that the last 2 weeks on the road tracks, or the road courses. So Haley needs to, I tell you what, I like it because it's a contrarian play. And I like betting on, look, Sean and I talked up, this goes back to last year. Sean and I were really looking forward to Haley working with Rodney Childers. What all went down there, I don't know. Clearly, Rodney Childers didn't feel like they were going in the right direction. He wanted Haley, so maybe there's something with the equipment, the team, and what they're doing that doesn't jive with Haley. I don't know. But I think he's more talented than what he's shown. I mean, he's shown a lot of promise as he came up through the ranks. He showed promise at all the super speedways and underfunded equipment. And that stuff's disappeared. Like, I don't know what has happened, but it's been gone. So I love it because you're right. The data points in that direction in the history. I'll keep my picks. I got the same as Sean. And Sean, I'm not going to say he stole my thunder, but he nailed it. So, and I'm kind of on legacy, because of the Jimmy Johnson angle. He drove this race last year in his own cars. The speed has been better for legacy overall. Eric Jones has had the history. So I'm with you guys on John Hunter. I'm with you on Eric Jones. And, there's a little bit of dirt track to this track, which is why, or style of racing, which is why I think Larson has kind of done well here at times. So I'm not shocked Ricky hasn't. Although I could easily look at pivoting to Justin Haley simply because I don't have a lot of faith in both, although Ricky has consistently been a place differential scorer. I mean, damn near every week. He's a 30th, 20th place car and is averaging a finish like 10 spots ahead of that. It's insane. So it's worth noticing, but we're going to have to do something contrarian because I think you're right, Mark. It's the stars and scrubs, and it's probably the same 5 stars that everybody's going to be chasing. So people are probably going to have 3 of those 5, whichever that mix is in their lineups. So I feel like we're looking at 5 guys with ownership from 35 to 45, 50%.
Yeah. And then the other reason why I threw out 3 guys under the 6K tier is I'm with you guys on Eric Jones, Stenhouse, JHN, but I think the rest of the field is also going to be
Fair.
on those three. So my concern is that you squeeze in two $6,200 drivers. Next thing you know, you have a very chalky lineup because it's chalky in the bottom tier and upper.
And you keep telling us, eat the chalk up top. Don't do it at the bottom.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep. I'm just going to quickly mention two more names that we didn't talk about that I feel like are names that I want us to keep in mind for this weekend that I don't think people are talking up as much. One is Bubba Wallace. He actually has scored some positive place differential finishes within his last couple of races at Dover right there. And he did finish. He has 3 finishes of 16th or better in the last 4 Dover races. And he also ran pretty well until getting involved in an accident in last year's race, too. So do keep that in mind. And then the other driver here is one that I think people are not going to be looking at to own at all. Give me some Cole Custer, actually. That's a name that I think we should watch. Right here.
He, especially in the Xfinity series and even with Stuart Haas at Cup, he wasn't a slouch here, Sean. I kind of forgot about him.
Yeah.
So I have a question about that because, I mean, we talked about how on road courses he might be a good play because even though the speed's not there, he could work the course as well. He could keep it on pavement. What in this type of track appeals to you, if anything, outside of just historical data in Xfinity and Cup?
Well, if anything, it's just because that Haas factory team, they're aligned technically with RFK Racing. So there's the technical alliance with that. RFK has shown some speed with Chris Buescher at times at this particular track right there. And you look at the history too. This has just been a track where even Cole himself has said that the track fits his driving style very well, too. And he's never finished worse than 15th in his entire Cup career at Dover. And that was the finish where he had the next-gen car right there, too, in 2022. And keep in mind as well, when he did have that one start in the next-gen car in 2022, that was with Stuart Haas, but Stuart Haas was kind of on the downturn of their tenure at that point too. So I think that Custer, especially for how low he's priced this week, I mean, he's only 5,100 on DraftKings right there. I think that if he does end up starting far back enough, but not too far back enough, I'd be willing to maybe take a chance on that.
And if you want to build off of technical alliance, think about maybe stacking like a Buescher and Custer. That's quite the contrarian type of build to kick things off with your lineup. And then you can do whatever the hell you want with the rest of it.
His run last year in the Xfinity series here was incredible. If I'm not getting my tracks confused. I'm trying to remember, but I swear this is where he and Austin Hill and was it Griggs? Not Griggs. Was it Sam Mayer? Man, they were battling. It was like a 3-way battle, and Custer ran them down and basically took the win. Or was that when Austin Hill wrecked him? We come here twice.
I think that was when Austin Hill wrecked him. But then again, he's never really had a terrible finish at Dover in the Xfinity series. He's only finished outside of the top 10 only once in his entire Xfinity career, and now it's 8 different starts. And he also has a win right there, too.
And I will say this, as far as the carryover, Sean brings up an excellent point that one of his best runs was already when we saw the downslope on Stuart Haas. But I will say there's something, even in their heyday, where they were good, say, at Martinsville, they were good at Dover. Some of those notes carry over. And when you're a driver that knows how the car should feel when it's fast, I think that plays very well to you, even when you're in lackluster equipment, because you can at least give enough feedback to the team of, I need more of this here, or I'm missing that there. And I think it makes a huge difference. And so while I would put him as a top 10 contender at his price point, we only need him to be a top 20 contender. Right. So I think maybe the team is top 25, 30 speed, but this week we can get top 15, 20 speed out of it. Does that make some sense?
Yeah, he probably, if he could stay on the lead lap, that's half the battle for him too. So
yes. So
My other point was that I think that team right there for Haas factory team has slowly been picking up more and more speed over the course of the season right there, where I don't think they're like a back marker anymore, finishing like 35th or so. I think they could actually compete for top 25 at the very minimum now if the circumstances line up, and Cole's got a feel for the car right there. And he knows how to run well at this track too. So those are my points that I'm giving for him.
Well, let's get into our cores then, shall we?
Yeah, DFS core 4s. Just going to name them. I've got Denny Hamlin over there at 11,000 on DraftKings, 13,500 on FanDuel. Ross Chastain at 9,500 on DraftKings and 11,000 on FanDuel. Josh Berry made the core this week for me. He's 6,800 on DraftKings and 7,500 on FanDuel. And then I'm going to round it out with Eric Jones at 6,300 on DraftKings and 6,200 on FanDuel. Mark, who do you got in your core?
I got Hamlin, 11K, Byron, 10,500, JHN, $5,700, and doubling down on 2 sub 6K guys, and Justin Haley at 5,500. He's my 1% owned DFS play. Who's going to take me to the ship?
Love it.
Rich?
I went Ryan Blaney, and William Byron. I could easily go Hamlin over one of those two guys. Obviously, qualifying will matter, that sort of thing. But I'm really focused on trying to build 2 out of those 3 drivers. Give me Eric Jones. And honestly, you guys sold me. I want to get Josh Berry in. I really do. I could easily go maybe John Hunter or something over Eric Jones to save money because I like Mark's angle on that. But for me, give me Blaney, Byron, Jones, and Berry, please.
All right. Sounds great. Betting core 4s for the winners. I've got Denny Hamlin at plus 500, William Byron at plus 750, Chase Elliott at plus 1,000, and Ross Chastain at plus 1,200 right there. So, Rich, who do you got for your betting core 4?
So I'm with you on Denny Hamlin at plus 500, but honestly, my favorite bet as we sit today is William Byron at plus 750. I am warming up to Chase Elliott. I've got Larson listed here at plus 500. I'm struggling here. I really am. I think I may even prefer to look at Denny or Ryan Blaney, who is 750, I believe, last I checked.
He's plus 700 as we speak.
700. All right, so 700. I was in the ballpark. So I think I'd rather take the longer odds and go Blaney than I would Larson, even though both of them seem to be having rotten luck.
I got Hamlin plus 500, Elliott plus 1,000, Larson plus 500. I got to get exposure to him somewhere. Maybe I don't throw him in my lineup. I make a bet on him. Sure. And then Bell plus 1,000 to give me a plus 750 average between all of my core 4 bets.
We didn't talk much about Bell on the podcast really today, but he's another driver that I think could have a pretty good run this week too. I like that call right there.
He ran well this weekend. I mean, he got the top 5, and it was a battle. But I feel like the speed was finally back in that 20 car this weekend or this past weekend.
Oh, it was totally there. He just he probably could have been right up there with Briscoe had circumstances worked out. Actually, he just spun earlier on in the race, and then he just struggled to get through the pack. So he just couldn't get there until the very end. That's all with that. Other bets and picks that we have for today, you're going to notice a very common name within a lot of my other bets right here, which, we'll just get right on into it. Ty Gibbs for a top 10, plus 110. Josh Berry for a top 10 at plus 200. Give me Chase Elliott for a top 5 at plus 150. I got the head-to-head with Tyler Reddick and Ty Gibbs. Give me Ty Gibbs at plus 110. DK Group C winner, that's between Logano, Gibbs, Sosafar, and Keselowski. I've got Ty Gibbs at plus 250 winning the group.
I hope I didn't curse you earlier.
And, well, the bold or McChicken call of the week, give me Ty Gibbs to win at plus 2,800.
The irony and the humor in all this is because I have been, thumping the Ty Gibbs drum for, I don't know, last, 3-4 weeks, Sean, something like that, pretty regularly. And I'm not this week. I love the bets. I'm not knocking them. It's just funny to me because 2 weeks ago I said I want exposure to him, so let's bet him in the group. You know, I wasn't ballsy enough to bet him as a top 3 or whatever, but he did win the group just barely over Reddick, so that was cool. And then I had us in a sweat this week for the top 5, which I'm salty about because I should have just drank the juice and said a top 10. So to see you, because if I remember correctly, a month ago, you were like, Gibbs, Rich, though. Really? We haven't seen it yet. So for you to come around, obviously the speed is there now. You've seen it now. And it's just kind of fun to see you all on. And I tell you what, just so we won't jinx Sean, I'm not going to push Ty Gibbs. I love Ty Gibbs. Please feel free to bet it. I am not going to jinx Sean. I refuse to do that. We know where we stand. We're in Gibbs country. It's fine.
I'm just making up for lost time, Rich, to be there.
That's
with you
fair.
now.
That's fair. It's just like I said, it's almost like a point of pride, right? Because you know me, I take a lot of pride in being on the train early and off of it early. So, and I miss sometimes, right? I'm too early and I'm off too early or whatever. So the fact that you're here at this point makes me feel warm and fuzzy, man. It really does.
Hey, if anything, this is kind of making up for the fact that I was on the Ryan Priest train most of the year, and then you hopped on a little bit
It's true.
that too.
100% true. I was slow to get on the Priest train, and you were the conductor on that bad boy, and it was working like a charm. So
it worked a good amount of the year too.
It was. And I've said before, when you and I are on the same page, look out, right? Now that we got Mark in here, when the 3 of us are clicking, like I think this is why all of us and the members are starting to see really getting closer to the whale as what's his name? G. Humboldt. It was saying, you know, we're getting closer to the whale. I'm laughing because I'm telling the wife I'm pissed because I'm breaking even playing tournaments. Like, that's just weird. Like, that's just not how it's supposed to be. So I love it. I've only got one bet. I love the Ty Gibbs top 10 at plus money. I think that's a steal of a bet. Get it while you can because I don't think you're going to have that bet 2 days from now. My McChicken of the bet, and this is a storyline. I'm betting the 48, Alex Bowman, 22-1 for the win. They need it, and this is as good of a place as any that it can happen.
I like that call, too. I think Bowman has a pretty fair shot to get it done.
So for me, I got a McChicken of the week as well, and that is Josh Berry plus 5,500. Give me a Wood Brothers win.
I almost picked that. I almost picked that for my slot.
I mean, if I'm not playing him in DFS, I got to have exposure somewhere because I'd be kicking myself if I didn't. And so, that's kind of where I stand with it because he's almost like an all or nothing type of play here.
Let's touch on that real quick because I know we need to wrap up. I love that, Mark. This is something I think all of us as players should do, especially with NASCAR. And I understand that means spreading money out a little bit. So maybe temper some of the bets a little lower, like chase the longer bets with less money, right? $5, $10 instead of $100 or what have you. But I'm with you. I think when we're feeling things and want things, if it's not working, because like I keep saying, I'm telling myself for DFS, chase points, not finishes. Well, if you like a guy and you don't have him in your lineup, go chase the finish with the bet. Drink the juice and get the top 10. I mean, Josh Berry for a top 10 at 5,500. I don't have it in front of me, but I got to believe he's plus 250 or something like that for a top 10.
It was 200 because I had him listed under my other bets right there for this week too.
So, I mean, you could do a little bit of love and say, all right, I'll put $5 on Josh Berry for a top 10 and hope to win $10, right? I mean, it'd be a solid way if you didn't get him in your lineup. Conversely, I don't want to bet Kyle Busch on anything, but boy, he fits really well in my lineup this week. I think he's a little bit contrarian because of his price point. Great. I'm not going to bet Kyle Busch. I'm going to put in my lineup and look elsewhere. I honestly think it makes the race, and Mark touched on this earlier in the show. He was really enjoying Saturday because of the action. And I don't mean racing action. I'm talking about the sweat and the action in his wallet, right? So there's something to be said about that. And let's be honest, the whole reason sports betting existed is so everybody does have some action and it is invested in the sport they're watching beyond just, I'm hoping to see what happens, right? So when there is a stinker of a show like what SVG gave us, I was vested in Ty Gibbs. I was hooked because I was watching Ty Gibbs all race long. Mark, you were hooked because you were watching the head-to-heads and the guys you were in on. That made the race fun for us, right? Oh, yeah. So I think that's a smart way to play, and I think we should encourage it more.
I think it's also just a good way of diversifying your exposure and minimizing,
Yes.
protecting yourself against the downside to a certain degree. You're not all in on a DFS lineup. You're not all in on a bet.
Don't overlap on both and be all in. That's a good way to get disappointed in a hurry.
Yeah.
Truly. Unless you're just really that sure that you think that's going to happen. Like SVG winning a road course.
That's fair, but I tell you what, Sean, I'm the type that I still want something to hedge. Because in my life experience, every single time, in fact, I do this. Let's say I do 3 lineups for a super speedway race, right? Because we like to spread it around. If I go to my player exposure and I see someone at 100%, I don't care if I find a 25-cent lineup, a 50-cent lineup, a $1 lineup, whatever it is. I go create a whole nother lineup specifically to not put that driver in it.
Yeah,
because
that is the way that you should do it.
Every time I have 100% exposure, especially if I mix it with the bet, complete loss.
That's why I always preach in the Discord, never, ever put anybody 100% into your lineup. In fact, actually, I usually encourage our people at Fantasy Guru in the Discord to usually not go above maybe 65, 70% ever.
Same.
Yeah.
That's just asking for trouble.
Well, any closing thoughts, gentlemen? I'm just happy we're oval racing.
Oh, yeah.
Same. I'm so glad about that. And, we might as well call this the RaceGuru Thunder Hours show now.
Apparently.
Because we decided to give our viewers double the content this week. So
always. So, all right. Well, on behalf of Sean Engel, please follow him on X at SeanE247 and Mark Hogan, the DFS _Marlin. You can find him on X there. Hey, we're always in Discord. You can tag us as Rich, Sean, or Mark. Hit us up. Hit us with your thoughts. These guys are always in there answering questions on your lineups. Mark is our ownership guru. That's what I'm going to call him. On behalf of everybody at Fantasy Guru and the Elite Plus Network, I am Rich Maletto. Do not follow me on X. Until next time, peace.